Hey everybody, it's Caitlin, your geeky girlfriend. We are going to fold some laundry and I'm going to share my birth story with you guys. Just FYI in advance, I did have a hospital birth and I did have an epidural, so if that is not your journey, then this video will not be for you. However, I would encourage you to watch this video because you just never know and things don't always go as planned. So yeah, do with that what you will. But I'm Caitlin. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is my portion of the internet where I just share content that I, as a new mom, a first-time mom, would like to watch and would like to see. And if you want to be here and want to see it too, then great. If not, then that's fine. I have a whole bunch of other content that might be appealing to you. I have book review videos, movie review videos, and eventually more travel content as well. But I have a lot of travel content already on the page. We have unboxings, we have clothing stuff. So just, whatever strikes your fancy. If you're here for the new mom stuff, great. If you're not, then maybe I'll catch you guys in another video. So my birth journey, I obviously am not going to go into all the gory details, but I'll just kind of share the things that happened, didn't happen. So when I first got pregnant, I had, I didn't really have any qualms about not going to the hospital. So the plan was to always have a hospital birth, and the plan was also to be just open-minded about the prospect of an epidural, because I do have a very low pain tolerance, and well, don't you hate when you use stain remover and the stain doesn't come out? I have a very low pain tolerance, and so I kind of knew that that was going to be part of my journey. But and I didn't, when people would ask me, are you going to have an epidural? Or are you going to whatever? I would just tell them the truth. Like, I don't know. We'll just see what happens. You don't know sometimes until you're there. But I really had hoped to have like a spontaneous labor. I really wanted to go into labor naturally, have my water break on its own. Like, I kind of wanted to have that really dramatic labor experience. And unfortunately, that did not happen. Baby girl was very comfy cozy in there. And she just was content to stay in there. Now, because I did have the low grade gestational diabetes, I was not able to carry further or past 41 weeks. So, and actually, they wanted to induce me a little bit before. So, 41 weeks would have been December 29th. And so, as of my due date, which was December 22nd, I met with my OB, and I was 3 centimeters dilated at that appointment, which isn't nothing, but I had been having what I thought were early labor, false labor contractions for the whole week prior to that appointment. And on December 7th, I had an appointment, and I was 1 centimeter dilated at the December 7th appointment. So in 2 weeks, I had dilated 2 centimeters. I was 70% effaced, which was a great start. But after a whole week of what I thought was false labor, I was a little bit disappointed that we weren't further along. And the doctor just said, oh, it could happen at any time. Watch out for your labor signs, etc. And the labor signs are contractions lasting a minute, 3 to 5 minutes apart, or less, for an hour. And so we just kept waiting. I was timing things. I did not go to work that whole last week. I just worked remotely. I have that flexibility. I had a lot of meetings and stuff, a lot of paperwork, lots of emails that were sent. And so I have flexibility in that regard. I know not everybody has that flexibility, but if you are able to, people at work were actually asking me like, how are you still here? How are you still working? So it was kind of funny. But anyway, so I was 3 centimeters dilated, 70% effaced as of my due date. And at that doctor's appointment, we set a date to be induced. Now, I did not want to be induced. Like I said, I really wanted to have that grandiose, dramatic, spontaneous labor experience. And I had shared that with my doctor and told her that I really wanted to have the spontaneous labor experience. I did not want to be induced. And she was receptive to that to a certain extent. But like I said, with the low grade gestational diabetes, her hands were a little bit tied and we couldn't just wait forever for that. Like I couldn't just carry forever or be pregnant forever. So we scheduled the induction, and in my mind I was like, okay, it's fine, maybe we'll schedule it and then I'll just go into labor this week. And unfortunately that did not happen. Now, because of the gestational diabetes, I did have to do a non-stress test, which essentially we had to go to the hospital, to the labor and delivery unit. They hooked me up to a contraction monitor and they put a heartbeat monitor on baby. Lasted about 20 minutes. And if you have to do a non-stress test, it is completely non-invasive. I just laid there on the bed. They had me hooked up to the monitor, and it does last 20 minutes. And as long as everything is good and they see what they need to see, then you're in and out of there and you can go home. We were told that we could do this at any time. So literally any time in a 24-hour period. They are open all the time, obviously. And so we literally went at like 10 p.m., walked in. There was nobody there. It was great. Because like I said, it was like 10 p.m. And they are looking for baby's response to any contractions. They're looking for like rises and falls of the heartbeat. So they have it all worked out to a system, of course. And as long as they see what they need to see, then you're good to go. We were good to go. So we went home. We were scheduled for an induction at 9 p.m. on the 26th, day after Christmas. So we did not get our Christmas baby, which was honestly okay by us because it just makes birthdays really weird. So they told us to eat before. So on that day after Christmas, we went and we had a nice meal. My family was there because my parents were coming to the hospital with us. And we just ate whatever. I ate whatever I wanted, and just wanted to make sure that I got a lot of protein, some carbs, just things to give me energy, but I didn't want too many carbs because obviously I didn't want to be super sleepy if I, needed the energy. I also was running really high on adrenaline. Like, I didn't sleep very much the night before. And that would probably be my number one recommendation if you know you're going to be induced, is get as much sleep as you can before you go to the hospital, because I was so anxious and nervous that I did not sleep very well. And that made it I think it made it a little bit worse, because then I ended up being up kind of at the hospital, and I didn't really sleep until well into the process of actually laboring, because I just, my adrenaline, my anxiety was so high. So my husband and I originally had said we were going to kind of treat it as if we were working night shift, try and sleep during the day. And that didn't happen. I literally was up at 5:30 in the morning. I watched a couple movies. I just could not sleep. I ended up making a playlist for myself. That's how I spent my day. So just do something that's really relaxing. Don't do, we knew we were going to be induced, and I had been pretty active that week. My husband and I went to a movie on my due date. We were kind of trying to do everything we could to induce labor ourselves. But unfortunately, baby girl had other plans. So we got to the hospital. They checked us in. We did have to go to the emergency room because the main entrance to the hospital that we went to was closed, because it was 9 p.m. So they didn't have somebody like monitoring the doors, which fine, whatever. They told us that when we went for our hospital tour, which if you are an expecting mother, I highly recommend doing a tour of the maternity unit that you're going to be delivering in. It was so helpful, and they answered so many of our questions. So we got there. I got all checked in. Since I had just been there for my non-stress test a couple days before that, a lot of the initial information, like my insurance and all that, they already had, because when I went for the non-stress test, they took care of all that. All in all, it took about 15 minutes for me to get checked in. We didn't even have to wait in the waiting room that long. They kind of got us back in a room pretty quickly. But when we got into the room, I was asking about I knew I was going to want a ball, a birthing ball, and there was already a peanut ball in my room, but I wanted an actual birthing ball. And then also I had asked if I could have or be able to take a bath or a shower during the labor process. And there was a shower in the room. That's pretty standard, but she told us that they actually had a room with a tub available. And so I said, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and move to that one. So we had to wait about 20 minutes for her to like get that room cleaned up and everything. But in hindsight, I ended up not even using the tub, so we could have stayed in the regular room, but it is what it is. You don't know what you don't know. And at the time, the tub was something that I was like really, really wanting. So we went ahead and asked for it. And the tub room was pretty large. And my husband and I like took videos of it and everything. But anyway, so we got in, I got into my gown. I just wore the hospital one because I was like, it's being provided for me. I'm not going to buy something. Like, I'm just going to wear the hospital one. And they got my IV started and administered, because when you do a hospital birth, and because I was being induced, the IV is not really optional. Like, it was pretty much mandatory. I didn't really have a choice in it, I would say. And they just got it started because they were going to do the Pitocin. And by the time I got into my gown, they got the IV started. It was about 10:30-ish at night. And then by the time they actually got the Pitocin started in the IV, it was around 11:30, maybe even midnight. So we've now been in the hospital about 2.5 hours, and they started me on the Pitocin. Now, because I was already 70% effaced, I did get to skip over the Cytotec misoprostol step of the process, and just went straight to the Pitocin. I started at 2 milliliters, and it was just on a drip, and my family was there. We played some games in the room. I was bouncing on the ball, trying to get baby to move down. I'm gonna get rid of this. This doesn't fit me. It's like a little tight. Trying to get baby to move down, trying to get things going, because I was like, well, we're here. We're being induced. I haven't really slept, so let's see if we can get this process kind of started. And yeah, so we were playing games. I was bouncing on the ball, rolling on the ball. I was walking around because I had a wireless monitor. I took a walk at one point, and literally we continued all of those activities. We tried to watch some movies, tried to watch some TV until about 3 in the morning. And then at that point, sorry for my lighting, I'm like putting stuff away in the closet. So just, okay. Sorry about that. My lighting was a little dark because I'm in the closet. Where's my, oh, there it is. There we go. That's better. So anyway, till about 3:30 in the morning, my husband at this point was like, I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed. And my parents went out to the waiting room to try and get some sleep. We turned off the lights and I tried to get some sleep. Now, mind you, the nurse was coming in about every 30 minutes to monitor the Pitocin, ask me if I was in any pain, and then she was kind of increasing the Pitocin gradually. And also talking to me about cervical checks and kind of the next steps in the process. Now, when I got to the hospital, the very first cervical check that she did, she told me I was about 4. I was like 3.5-ish. So I had progressed 0.5 centimeter in that week. And then by 5 in the morning, I was almost 4. So I had only progressed about 0.5 centimeter after about 5 hours of Pitocin. So things were slow moving, to say the least. But I still was not having very much pain. And I will be honest and say that, I was very against the Pitocin the whole time because I had heard that it makes contractions worse. It can make them more painful, more intense, make you feel things a lot more. And for me, my contractions were very inhibited by the fact that my water had not broken. So my water bag was still intact. So the Pitocin was like, I think I was having contractions, and what I had thought was false labor, possibly contractions, I was told was like just irritation, and it wasn't actually contractions, which was a little bit frustrating. Now I still was dilating despite all of that, but my water bag was still intact. So also in this video, since my laundry is done, we're gonna start putting some of my maternity clothes in the tote, because we are back in regular clothes, and we are like, this is a little, so we're just about 4 weeks postpartum and we're back in regular clothes. Now I am choosing to wear things that are a little bit more oversized just for comfort, and I probably will do maybe an update, but we do have some stretch marks, a little bit of, natural stomach, so that's about 4 weeks, and admittedly I have done nothing. I've done a lot of like sitting around, so I really truly was all baby and all belly, and it's been kind of crazy to kind of watch the transition back. And I'm going to do another video about postpartum healing and recovery. Maybe we'll talk about it in this video, but there's probably going to be a separate video, and I'll talk about like my stomach going back to normal because it was kind of a weird sensation. But anyway, so the process was very slow. I had heard kind of negative things about Pitocin and that it can make things more intense and, cause the pain to be worse, etc. But my water bag was still intact, so I really wasn't feeling that much pain. I was feeling very low level pain, like not even barely a 1 on the scale, which was good for me because I don't do well with pain. So, I wasn't complaining. But I was a little bit, I guess you could say irritated because things were moving so slowly. And so that in and of itself was a little bit irritating. And so then they were talking to me about breaking my water. And she originally said that she was going to have a midwife come in and do it. I was uncomfortable with that just because I don't do well with like a lot of different providers. Like I like to kind of know who my provider is. And I will say we knew going into the hospital that I was not going to have my regular OB deliver my daughter because she was not the doctor on call that weekend. So I knew going into the hospital that we were not going to have my regular OB. We knew who the OB was going to be. We had her name, but we had never met her before. It was a woman, which I was happy about because I do prefer female providers. And so the nurse was telling me about how she could do a cervical check, but she was going to have the midwife break my water. And I just simply was like, okay, I don't love that, but got to do what you got to do. Well, then at around 7:30 a.m., the actual OB who was going to be delivering my daughter came in and introduced herself, which was unexpected. She just happened to be there checking on somebody else or doing something else and stopped in, which was very nice. She did not have to do that. And so then it was decided that the OB was going to be the one to break my water. The doctor came in, introduced herself. By this point, I was up to 12 milliliters per unit of Pitocin, so they had increased it 6 times. And, that's my daughter waking up. So they had increased it 6 times. And like I said, around 5 a.m., I was only at 3.5 centimeters dilated. So again, just moving really slow. So the doctor came in at around, I ended up sleeping for a little bit. Shift change happens. New nurse comes in, starts asking me if I knew I wanted an epidural, starts talking to me about that process. And for those of you who don't know, if you do want an epidural in the hospital, the whole process takes about an hour. You do have to have 2 bags of fluids. Now, I had already had 1 bag overnight, so I only had to have 1 more bag of fluid before they could do the epidural. But she was talking to me about that, getting the doctor to come in and do cervical check and break my water. That all happened at around 10 in the morning. So doctor came in, introduced herself, came back in around 10, and the decision was made that they were going to break my water. And at that point, I was just shy of 5 centimeters. I was like 4'9", and then the doctor broke my water, and as soon as she did that, I felt every single thing. Now, I will say that the cervical checks, honestly, were probably the worst part of the process for me. I do not know why. Well, I do know why. They're uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, anything that has to do with the cervix, I always struggle with. Like, even a regular pap smear is a little bit uncomfortable for me, if we're being very upfront and honest. So the cervical checks I really, really struggled with, and I had to borderline be held down, by my mom, my husband, whoever was in the room with me. It was a process to do the cervical checks. Now, she did that. I was 5 centimeters. She broke my water, and I felt everything all at once. I asked about the tub, and was kind of given a runaround answer that it would take a long time. I would need more constant monitoring in the tub than if I wanted to take the shower. Like the shower, I was able to be more, I think we're going to leave this one out because it's good for nursing. In the shower, I was able to be had more privacy, I guess. So I went to the bathroom, took a shower, and I was in the shower for maybe 30-ish minutes, in the bathroom for about 15 to 20. So about an hour had went by. And in the shower, I literally just took the shower head and was just running it all over my pelvis, just trying to relax those muscles because I was on 12 milliliters per unit of Pitocin. And they always say that labor is like waves, and I didn't have waves. I just had pain, pretty constant pain. Now, it did go from lower level to higher level, but still, I was pretty much in pain constantly, and I didn't really get much of a break. So that was hard to deal with. The shower, I would say the whole time I was in the shower, I maybe had 30 seconds of respite, 30 seconds to a minute, a couple different times. When I was in the shower, I was telling myself that there are no gold medals for birth. There are no trophies given out if you go natural. So as soon as I got out of the shower, I told my husband to go ahead and tell the nurse that I wanted to start the process for the epidural. And like I said, the epidural can take up to an hour. So I knew that I was going to have to kind of, labor for that long. The other thing was we had talked about other types of pain medicine. And one of the ones that was brought up to me was Nubane, which is given through the IV. And I had opted in for that because in my mind I was thinking, okay, if I can get this IV pain medication, maybe it'll help curb some of the pain and I can hold off a little bit longer for the epidural. And the Nubane, I had heard conflicting reviews because my mom had taken Nubane when she was pregnant and she absolutely hated it. She said she did not like how it made her feel. And she said, but it's your body, you give it a try. So I had opted in for it and I asked for it and the nurse says that she gave it to me. I felt nothing from it. And my mom had said that it made her like loopy and borderline like have hallucinations. I literally felt nothing. If anything, the only thing I felt was tired, but I just attributed that to like just laboring in general because I like hadn't slept very much and I didn't sleep very much the night, overnight at the hospital. And I just attributed the tiredness to my body trying to use energy that I really didn't have. Because I didn't really feel anything from the Nubane. I didn't feel any pain relief. And by the time like she gave me the Nubane or said that she gave me the Nubane and the time that I actually got my epidural, it was not a very long time in between. Maybe 20 minutes. And during that time, I was laboring in the bed with the peanut ball. And that did help some. I'm not going to lie. Like, being able to rock back and forth. And, I kind of put my head on the peanut ball. Like, that did help. I'm not saying that it didn't. But overall, I didn't feel anything from the Nubane. So that was kind of disappointing that it didn't give me any relief. For the epidural, like I said, I had already had one bag of fluid, so I only had to have one. The anesthesiologist came in. He was very no nonsense. He kind of came in, got right to the point. During the epidural, you are only allowed to have one person in the room with you. So I chose to have my mom with me. And next time I would probably choose to have my husband in there, but my mom is an RN, so, she's been there, done that. I knew that she would be, like, encouraging with her words and all that, and my husband is not, he's not great with words in those situations, so I just felt that having my mom was better. So, all in all, the process took about 15 minutes, if that. Everything that he told me, the anesthesiologist told me I was going to feel, I felt. And about 20 minutes later, it took effect, and I felt nothing. The biggest thing for me was I couldn't feel the cervical checks, and that made a huge difference. I was unable really to sleep that much. I think I slept maybe 45 minutes at one point. But all in all, this is all taking place right around 1 p.m. So they broke my water about 10:30 in the morning, and by 1 p.m., I was feeling good on the epidural. And then, like I said, we watched some TV, we watched some game shows. When you have an epidural, you're unable to get out of the bed at that point. They did come in every 30 minutes, have me change positions. They helped me change positions. I had the peanut ball for a little bit. They were still trying to get my cervix to finish dilating. So they had me like put the peanut ball between my legs at one point, rotating side to side. When you're on the epidural, they empty your bladder for you. Totally weird sensation. There is a potential side effect of a bladder infection. Thankfully, I didn't have that. And I just felt that my legs were really heavy. I knew that I had legs. I knew that they were attached to my body. But for me, it just felt like they were really heavy. And like I needed all of my strength to lift my legs. So I still could feel them, if that made sense. But I couldn't feel anything like in the vaginal cervical area. Which was great for the cervical checks, not so great for the pushing, which we'll talk about in just a second. So, like I said, at 1 p.m. I had the epidural. I was given ice chips. Oh, and eating. I was eating overnight until until they broke my water. Then it was no more eating, and then it was ice chips and water only. So that was something that you also hear. Oh, you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat. I ate overnight. And I think we found out the next day that maybe I wasn't supposed to eat, but I did, and we just said, oh well, because it is what it is. And like I said, I was given water and ice chips and the usual things after that. But then like I said, I did not really sleep that much. I tried, but I just couldn't. It was like too much stimulation. And I could have very well asked my family to go to the waiting room. But also, like, I kind of had this, like, I guess you could say anxiety. And I just didn't really want to be alone in the room. And that's just an anxiety that I think I would have had regardless. I just don't. Like, I just always wanted somebody to be in there. But at 5:55 p.m., they did another cervical check. And surprise, surprise, I was fully dilated. It took, I think, 3 more. Overall, after the epidural, I think I had 2 more cervical checks. And then finally at 5:55, they said I was 10 centimeters and that they were going to start to do some practice pushing. And so we did. They called the doctor and got her kind of queued up to arrive at the hospital. And I did one practice push, or, one round of practice pushing. The nurse told me it was pretty good and actually called the doctor right back and said she was going to just have me start pushing for real. Now, during this whole process, I was monitored via a contraction monitor. Baby was monitored using a heartbeat monitor. Both of those were wireless, but it was the continuous fetal monitoring. It was pretty non-invasive. It just sticks to your belly. I was able to get in the shower with it. They were, they're waterproof. She had to keep coming in and adjusting them, but I didn't really mind having them on. And, it's not invasive. It's the same monitoring that they use for the non-stress test. So, she was watching on the monitor and trying to tell me when I was having a contraction, but for whatever reason, the contraction monitor was kind of acting up, and it wasn't really giving her a clear picture, or like a clear read, I guess you could say, because she kept asking me if I was having a contraction, and I would say, no, I'm not really feeling any pain, but the monitor would say that I was having a contraction, and then vice versa. Like, I would tell her that I was having pain. She would say that the monitor really wasn't showing anything. So the monitor my monitor wasn't really doing us any favors. Wasn't really doing me any favors. And actually kind of made it a little bit more confusing, maybe a little bit more stressful, in that, like, it wasn't really picking up my contractions, and it wasn't honestly really doing what it was supposed to be doing, because everything was so sporadic. So when it was time to push, I would feel like a tightening in here. It's not pain, but like a tightening. And then they were trying to have me wait until the tightening would like peak. And so we tried that. And then there were some times when the nurse would just tell me to push, and there were other times when I would tell her that I was feeling the tightening and feeling like I was having a contraction. And then let's see. Started pushing, and when it was time to push, the doctor ended up coming in about 20 minutes into the pushing. I had my mom in there, the nurse, my husband, obviously. I had music playing, and it was a wide variety of music, you know, Taylor Swift, of course, and a bunch of other like movie soundtrack music and stuff. Doctor came in, really said that, like, she just came in, really went with the vibe of the room, which I appreciated a lot. And then she was great. We had a really good experience with the doctor, even though she was not my regular OB. She really made our whole experience. She was very calm, very respectful of my pace. Even during the cervical check that she did when she broke my water, I did not feel rushed. She was like, take your time, let me know when you're ready. Like, it was very much my pace, which was really, really appreciated. These we're going to keep out. Keeping out. Sorry for the pause there. I was looking at the rack. So then we started pushing, and my daughter was born at 7:37 p.m. So I pushed for just about an hour and 40 minutes. They told me that on average, a first-time mom who's been induced can push anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. And so I was like right in that middle. When pushing, they told me to like labor down and really just, you know, push down towards my butt like I was having a poop. And the problem was I could not feel anything. I had no sensations there. So I couldn't tell if I was pushing right, if I was doing the right thing, because I was not getting any feedback, because I couldn't feel my butt, I couldn't feel my rectum, couldn't feel any of that, to be able to push or labor down. And that's one of the, I guess, the negatives, the drawbacks to the epidural, is you can't feel when you're supposed to push. The doctor throughout the process did let me, or asked me if I wanted to feel my daughter's head, to feel my progress. Really focused on, I had to really focus on the breathing. My mom told me, act as if you're going underwater. Like, that's the breath that you need to take, is take a big breath like you're going to be going underwater and holding your breath like you're swimming underwater. And that was really helpful. That was a really good analogy for me, because I was trying to blow out, and you don't want to exhale. You want to like hold your breath and really push it down into your stomach, down, down, down into your rectum. And the doctor also demonstrated for me like a deep squatting position. And she was telling me that when you're pulling your legs back in the stirrups, like, try to imagine you're putting yourself in that deep squat position. So those were some of the things that helped during the pushing process, even though I couldn't feel very much. Now, when my daughter was crowning and we were in the ring of fire, I did feel like a burning pressure. Definitely not pain. I wouldn't describe it as a pain, but I could definitely feel something. It was the first time I had felt really anything in the nether regions the entire time. And like I said, it was more of a burning pressure, not necessarily a pain. I didn't feel like a ripping. I didn't feel a tearing. I just knew it was more like a burning heaviness, and it made breathing a little bit harder. That was the experience that I had. Like, I was having a harder time catching my breath in between. I'm also not a great breather. I learned that. So practicing breathing, like deep breathing, like holding your breath, is something that I will definitely be doing next time around, because I was getting lightheaded. My heart rate was rising because I was not filling my lungs deeply in between the pushing. So I was like doing my deep exhale, and then I was trying to exhale like that, instead of like getting deep belly breaths in and out to refill my lungs between each push. At one point they had a hard time finding my daughter's heartbeat via the monitor, but that was when we were right at the end. I could feel her head, and within 2 more breaths she was born. So I didn't really stress too much about that, but with those monitors, it can as baby descends further and further down, it's going to be hard for them to pick up her heartbeat or his heartbeat as you progress. So that is pretty much it. The only other thing I would say is I did have a 2nd-degree tear that needed stitching. She told me that if I wanted to hit the button for more epidural, that would be a good time to do that. I did not. I was so preoccupied with my daughter being on my chest and what they were doing to her that honestly, I still didn't really feel anything. Especially after her head was birthed, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel the placenta being born or delivered. I didn't really feel much of the stitching. I mean, I could feel her like poking, but I didn't feel anything else after that. And I did not have an episiotomy. My daughter just tore, it was a natural tear caused by my daughter's head. And like I said, I did have to have stitches. The stitches dissolve on their own, so you don't have to worry about that. And like I said, they tell you that you can hit your epidural if you want or feel the need to, and I just didn't feel the need to. So we did do delayed cord clamping for 2 minutes after we waited for it to stop pulsing. And my umbilical cord, or my daughter's umbilical cord, wasn't super long, so that was the other reason. We didn't really have a ton of room. All in all, I think at the end she was sitting about here on me, like below, like kind of where my belly button is. And then after the cord was cut, obviously we did the chest skin to skin. So yeah. We did, like I said, delayed cord clamping, which was standard practice at the hospital I delivered at, skin to skin and immediate focus on breastfeeding. And I had my daughter on my chest for the whole first hour. And then the second hour became, okay, let's clean up. Let's get you into your postpartum underwear and pads and everything. Baby's going to be weighed. She's going to do all of her little assessments, which did happen in the room. And then the focus then turned to me. And the other thing is I did throw up during pushing, once, technically twice, like it was one, and then I kind of just did it again, which is also very common. But that was something unexpected. I was expecting to throw up from the pain earlier on in the process, not as we were pushing. It kind of just came out of nowhere. I think it was, just the breathing. Like I just was having a hard time catching my breath, really filling my lungs. And as we got closer and closer to the end, then in case you're wondering, not all of those clothes fit in that tote, so we got most of them put away. Some of them I'm still keeping out because they're good for nursing. And then we'll just have to find another tote or bin or something. But anyway, so yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to tell you guys about that. Because in today's society, hospital births definitely have a bad reputation. And at our hospital where we delivered, the standard practice is we were in that delivery room for 2 hours, and then they transitioned us to we went upstairs to mother infant, and we were there for 2 days. So we got to mother infant about 10 p.m. on the 27th, and we went home at like 3 p.m. on Monday. So not quite a full 48 hours. And like I said, when baby was getting weighed and her temperature and her blood sugar, all of that was being checked. They kind of focused on me. They turned the Pitocin back up again to help the uterus constrict and help start the healing process and have everything go back to normal. They immediately started uterine compresses, which are uncomfortable even with the epidural. Those hurt. They turned off the epidural, took the epidural out, and then pretty, like, I was able to stand with help, transfer to a wheelchair. I was able to stand and kind of sort of get in and out of bed by myself. But when you have an epidural, you are a fall risk, and so you have to notify the nurse when you have to go to the bathroom for the first 2 times that you go to the bathroom. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then they help you get your pad, your disposable underwear. They help you get all that on, kind of help you get dressed. You can change your clothes if you want. I ended up wearing the hospital gown until like overnight or like early the next morning. And yeah, that was pretty much it. But like I was saying, hospital births today kind of have a bad reputation. So I wanted to just share my experience because as, you know, negative and as uneasy as I was going into the process, I felt it went very smoothly and I overall had a positive delivery experience. Would I get the epidural again? Absolutely. And honestly, the Pitocin was not that bad. I mean, that period of time after the water broke was not fun, but I made it like 45 minutes to an hour, so I'm proud of myself for that. And my goal going into the hospital was I wanted to get 4 or 5 centimeters dilated on my own, or as much on my own as I could before considering the epidural, and that's exactly what we did. So I was happy with that. Like I said, you don't win any gold medals for laboring and delivery, and my mom and the doctor both said if it was easy, it would be called vacation, not labor. It is hard work, it is exhausting, but sleep really was not sleep was really not a thing for me. I still only slept a few hours during the labor and delivery process. The next night when we were in mother infant, because I had my daughter with me, I was sleeping actually a little bit less. I still only slept like 3 hours that night. And then the next day, maybe 3 to 4 hours total in that 24 hours. And then you come home and you're in life with a newborn. So sleep is even more sporadic and inconsistent, which is the phase that we're in right now, which is why I'm going to make a separate video about the first month postpartum and like my recovery, baby, things that we've noticed, all of that. So I think that's it for this video. I just wanted to share kind of my experience with birth, labor, and delivery, because overall it was positive, and I want to share a positive hospital birth story, a positive epidural story to kind of break up some of the negativity that is circulating here on the internet about all of those things. So I think that's it for this one. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure to hit that red button and subscribe. Stay tuned for more in this series, more in this new era of content, and like this video if you do, and or don't. And yeah, so that's it for this one. I will see you guys in the next one, and stay warm. It's very cold here in Ohio, so stay warm, stay safe, and I'll see you guys later.